As we enter Advent, we enter our 10th year together as parish and priest. In some ways, time has passed so quickly, and in others, it's been a very long 9 years. I pulled up my sermon from our first Sunday together, as we're using the same lessons today, to see what I saw then as the challenges before us. And the first challenge was just learning who each other was, so that we might find our common passions and understand our differing visions. The second was not to try to change the other, but to trust that the Spirit would help refocus our differing visions into a shared vision that takes the best of what we have to offer and gives it to the glory of God. It's safe to say, I think, that what we have learned about each other over these past 9 years has been both amazing and a little disheartening. I guess that's no surprise. We're human. We're family. That means there are going to be some things in our lives we just can't find agreement on. And no matter how hard we try, we're not going to always please the other. Nor will we always live up to the other's expectations. Now, there might be one or two of you out there saying, "You got it, Father Tom. You have not lived up to my expectations. I'm not happy with all these changes we've made over the last 9 years." Well, I could say the same thing about some of you. Only my perspective would revolve around the fact that we haven't made some of the changes we could. But we're not here to point fingers at one another. We're here to celebrate those changes that have taken place in ourselves. As we grew to know one another and understand one another, we have done some things we might never have thought of before. And we've made a difference in the community, in the world around us, in ways we might never have done on our own. Despite the ups and downs we've had over the years, I still think we make a pretty good team. Not because we're all marching in a straight line and in step with one another, far be it from that, but because we now share a common purpose, a shared ministry. It's on the wall downstairs. To be a welcoming place where people meet Christ and grow in their relationship with God and one another through our worship, our service, and our fellowship. One might ask, how do you measure that success? Well, if we use the standard metrics of the church, average Sunday attendance and average pledge, we would note that despite the growth spurt we had 3 to 4 years ago, we really aren't much different than we were when I got here. Mostly because, well, we've had to say goodbye to some loved and longtime members of our parish family. And we've said goodbye to military families who get orders and leave. And partly because some of the new people that worship with us, well, they're just not here every Sunday. Either because of work or family, or just where they're at in their faith journey. Looking at our average pledge, while it's gone up a little over 30%, the number of pledges has gone down by 25%. This means fewer people are pledging, but those who do give more. Unfortunately, this means that whenever we lose a single pledge, for whatever reason, it has a greater impact on the community than if we were all participating, pledging what we could out of the blessings we know. This year, proportionally, we will once again try to do more with a little less. Now, according to these metrics, it would seem as if we're trying to walk up that down escalator and not get very far very fast. Yet it is when we look at our impact in the community, we see our real and greatest success. The lives changed and uplifted by our efforts to be God's hands in the world are too many to count. And I'm not just talking about the thousands who have benefited from our mobile pantries, or those who have received gifts that we've given to Friends of Tamar, Youth Emergency Services, Episcopal Relief and Development, United Thank Offering, Bellevue Food Pantry, Bellevue Together, just to name a few. Or those we have encountered along the way in 9 years on our mission trips to the reservation or to the Dominican Republic. Or those who use our building as a safe place to meet for whatever their mission. I also include all those who have passed through our community, meeting and serving Christ in our midst. Now, some of you might be wondering, what does all this have to do with Advent? Well, let me make a connection. When we came together 9 years ago, we elected not to rush things, but to wait patiently to see what the Holy Spirit did working in and through us to make us the parish community God envisioned. Here's the thing. Just as then, today, we don't know what God envisions for us. So we don't know when we get there. When we get to be who God expects us and calls us to be. You see, only God knows. But we have God's promise that, well, one day, in God's time, we'll get there. And that is if we are willing to trust in God. In the meantime, we are called to watch for signs that we are moving in the right direction. You see, if we watch for the wrong signs, we could miss what God is trying to show us. Advent is like that. It is a time to watch. Watch for what was promised so long ago. And our readings throughout the Advent season help remind us of what we are to be watching for. While metrics may be humanity's tool for measurement, God's measure is grace. If we focus too much on the metrics, we just might miss that grace. But if we're focusing on grace, the metrics, they will take care of themselves. Here's the catch. And it's something that Paul is trying to tell the people in Corinth. That there is a difference between watching for grace and seeking it. Like the Corinthians, we are not to sit idly by waiting for grace to suddenly appear. And Paul's not saying it can't, but he knows what happens when we just sit there. Our minds begin to wander, as they do about 3/4 of the way through my sermon. Our focus begins to narrow and blur. And when we don't find or receive what we expect, we stop looking for it altogether. That's why Paul and Jesus both say, don't wait, but seek. Actively look for grace and we will find it. Advent is portrayed as a time of waiting, and it is. Waiting for the return of Christ. But it's also a time for seeking. Seeking the grace revealed first in the incarnation and now in the world around us. In this way, we prepare for the grace that is yet to be made known. And being prepared, we're ready to recognize it, receive it, and share it. All to God's glory. As a parish, we can elect to wait, like the Corinthians, for what God has in store for us. Or we can get out of the pew and seek it. Seek it in one another. Seek it in our neighbor. Seek it in the world around us. Using every gift and talent God has given us to do so. That's not just the calling of the parish priest, or the vestry, or the ministry team leaders. But it is a calling in each and every one of us who profess faith and trust in God. I truly believe as we enter into our 10th year together, God is calling each and every one of us to get off our backsides and seek and serve Christ in those around us, even more than we do today. What would doing so look like? I don't know. Let's find out together as we share and seek God's grace with those God places in our lives, be they family or friends, co-workers or classmates, or the random person we meet in the grocery line, at the mall, walking down the street. Like a video that went viral a while back on Facebook. One where a little boy and an older lady sit on a park bench sharing snacks. When we, like they, get up and go our separate ways, we might realize that the one we encountered in the other is none other than the living Christ. Amen.
Amen.